welcome to another episode of the Eventual Knits podcast. My name is Leah and I live in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. Today is Sunday, June 14th, 2020. It is a very gorgeous, warm day outside today. I haven't podcasted in a bit over a month. I had planned on podcasting the week that George Floyd was murdered, and I, of course, not only decided that it would be inappropriate to do a podcast, I was immediately involved in the aftermath of that. So if you're a returning viewer, if you know me in real life, you know that Black Lives Matter. I am not shy or less vocal about saying that. If you are new here, welcome. Get ready to learn about my thoughts. I'm like kind of out of breath because I got up and walked around to get my headphones because I'm trying using my headphones today and seeing if that records better than talking on my phone. So, as I said, I live in the Twin Cities, and so the murder of George Floyd directly impacts me in that I am a part of this community. I don't live in Minneapolis proper, so I don't have any voting rights or anything like that within the city, but I am there a lot and I have a lot of friends who live there, and so it feels a lot of things that Minneapolis does. The St. Paul, which is, I live 1 mile outside of St. Paul. You get on one road that's a couple blocks from here and you drive right into St. Paul. So it's not, I don't live far. I'm a first ring suburb, but I'm very close to St. Paul. Minneapolis and St. Paul sort of build off each other or kind of copy each other in ways. They're sister cities, and in the school districts, what one district does, the other one will usually follow. So St. Paul often follows what Minneapolis does, that kind of thing. That feels irrelevant to what I'm saying, but I guess it's get some context for the area. What happened to George was wrong. What happens to Black people every single day with micro and macro aggressions is wrong. That is not something that I think is a political debate. I think that is just human rights and the way it should be. My whole life, I have sort of felt like my sort of reason for being here, or one of the most important things, is human rights. I've never really understood treating someone differently because of the color of their skin. I've never understood the concept that white people deserve more because they're white. That's not to say, of course, in any way that I have been perfect. I was raised in a white society. I have a white colored skin. I went to a second ring, third ring even maybe, suburb, white suburban school. There was a huge lack of diversity at my school, and then therefore I behaved in ways as a part of my environment, and I think about ways in which I was very complicit in racism in terms of in the form of, I think, jokes mostly, whatever, and being able to recognize that was a thing. History was 100% whitewashed. The peaceful MLK, I didn't learn about Ruby Bridges until I was an adult. I vividly remember one of my Black friends telling me about Ruby Bridges, and vaguely knowing, of course, that there was people involved in desegregation, but I didn't know their names, I didn't know their ages, I didn't know where it happened, and so I feel like I took steps to be a part of my own learning, as a result of college mostly. I finished out my bachelor's degree in St. Paul, if you are local, Metro State, and I took a class that was specifically on Minnesota violence and USA violence against marginalized communities, and that was when I learned about freaking Hurricane Katrina. It was 2010, and I didn't, like, I remembered Hurricane Katrina, but I didn't really know a lot of the specific details. It didn't impact me, so I didn't look into it, you know? And when I learned about it, like, it's all I talked about forever, and I still talk about it to this day. It's like one of those things where, like, as white people, we have the option to not engage, to not really acknowledge the harms that happen on a daily basis, like that it's easy to turn your eye and sort of blame people for their situation and not at all take into the context of what is really happening. And largely for the last 10 years, I've kind of felt like I am screaming into the void. I'm either talking to people who this impacts directly, like Black and brown folks, or to no one. I can't tell you how many Facebook friends I have lost over the years when I bring up this stuff, because I've been angry and I have yelled and I have feel like I was talking to no one, that no one cared or was listening. And I'm like, this has been a very different experience. I feel like a lot of people are actually waking up and are actually like understanding how we all have to fix this together. We can't wait for someone else to do it. And that has been really heartening, even though there's still so much that we need to dismantle. So I have been really active in a lot of the protests. I have had some really scary experiences at the hands of the police during these protests. And I've seen a lot of community. I've seen a lot of people who are fighting for our Black brothers and sisters, and I've seen a lot more people like working to stand in the gap. I stole that from I didn't steal it. I am reusing a phrase from Gay Gillespie, Gigi Made It. She talks a lot about standing in that gap. Like, as a white person, you can't have like Black people do all the work. Like, nothing's going to change if we white people don't do the work. And so it has been cool for me to be able to actually have conversations with other white people that feel like they are going somewhere, that people are really reevaluating how they've been complicit, what they can do, and where they've made mistakes, and how you can do better. Excuse me, how you can do better. And I think that has been one of the biggest things directly with me that I have seen. And so I've been doing a lot of work then with people I actually know, which is, again, very different from the past. And I really appreciate the efforts that my friends and family and people, acquaintances that I know, you know, to acknowledge and change. What I would ask of fellow white people is, don't just read and listen. Like, the time for just reading and listening is over. Like, it's been over, and we need to actually take action at the same time. You can do more than one thing. And so, like, while you're reading and, you know, while you're learning, same with me, we also need to be taking action. And so there's tons of resources out there. I mean, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I've been saying this, like, you can reach out to me privately and we can have a conversation about it. And there have been lots of people taking me up on that, and that's great, and I'm so happy for that, because I think we need to have these conversations and we need to keep moving forward. We need to stop just sitting here. I guess I wish I would have talked about this earlier, so I didn't have to end on it, but I also want to address the situation that happened with Stephen B. Stephen B is a local yarn shop that I have been to and had frequented and started getting to know staff and Stephen at like yarn shows and like in passing when I'd visit and whatnot. Stephen made a post. It was a video that he didn't say, as far as I'm aware, he didn't say anything about anything in the actual video, but in the caption, he or whoever, his PR person, whatever, who posted it, said something to the effect of, and actually this is pretty verbatim, the 100,000 dead and Minneapolis is on fire, let's knit, something like that. It definitely mentions about Minneapolis being on fire and 100,000 people being dead. It almost seemed to imply that 100,000 were dead in Minnesota or Minneapolis. This was particularly harmful to, I think, all people, but especially, of course, Black people. George Floyd was murdered 2-3 blocks. I mean, you could stand on the corner of Stephen B. and see where George Floyd was murdered, okay? That was not the way to go about the situation. He deleted the post eventually, or whoever deleted the post, and then there was like a really shitty apology that said something like, I didn't know what I was writing or something. And there was a similar situation that happened in an email just a couple weeks ago that was very racially insensitive in an email subject line. And in that same thing, it was that email wasn't proofread. Like, I don't know what that means, and that's not okay with me. Like, we are grown-ass people, and we can own our mistakes and say, wow, I fucked up, right? Like, you say that, and then you say, like, I hurt you, you know, like, it doesn't matter what your intention was. I hurt you, I'm sorry, I will do better, and here's the ways I'm going to do better. That's all you need. The comments are a dumpster fire on the 2 apology posts. People are, like, half the people are saying, like, that's not good enough, or, wow, I mean, this is still not really, like, acknowledging the hurt that you've caused, etc. And then the other half are, of course, the racist people who are coming to his defense on behalf of him, and just like, oh, it's JW this, blah, blah, whatever, like the dumbass stuff that those people say. And saying, I know you're a good person, Stephen, I know you meant it, I know you're a good person. Like, this is not about being a good or bad person, okay? It's about owning your mistakes and not hurting people. Like, it's doing better next time. I'm appalled. Like, I actually engaged with several people in these comments, and not just like in a fighting way, like actually like, this is what I wish that I would have seen from these posts, right? And I explained, this is like what an apology is, and this is how you do better, okay? And I had several people be like, well, I've never been apologized to like that, or like, well, I never get over it when someone hurts me, or just like, basically saying I have shitty relationships and I just want everything to go away. And I don't think that that's cool in our society. I think that we need to do better than that. Like, we need to stop being defensive, and we need to just move forward. Someone that I follow, I'm not going to name them because I mean to follow up with them about this, did a really good job, I feel like, of trying to say, like, I know Stephen personally, I reached out to him and I talked to him, and we're going to keep talking, right? Okay, so there's that part. I thought that was very good of this person to make that post. I think that this person probably has a lot of followers, and I mean, based on the comments, has a lot of followers who are, again, those like blindingly defending Stephen for the things that he said. And people are more offended at saying this thing that you said is racist than the racist comment itself, and that is a problem in our society, and we need to fix that. Guess what? All white people are racist. We all have racist tendencies because we live in a white supremacist society. Like, saying that I have biases and that there is definitely some unpacked racism in myself, because it's the culture that we live in, that we grew up in, that we were born into. That's not saying that I'm a bad person. It's not saying you're a bad person. It's the choices that we make as we move forward. And it's sitting with our discomfort and moving on. Like, we need to work on that. We need to grow as people. I can't imagine living without growing. I like live to do better and be better, because it feels good when you have overcome something, when you have unlearned bad habits from the past, or outgrown bad beliefs. It's okay. We don't know what we don't know, but now we need to know, and we need to fix it. I've talked about this for 15 minutes. I'm going to move on. You know how I feel. If you want to have a conversation about this with me further, reach me on Instagram at Miss_LJV. You can find me on Ravelry as Eventual. You can leave a comment if you want me to send you my email. If you want to text with me, like for real, I'll give you my phone number. You know, it's I want us to move forward together, and yeah. I talked longer than I wanted to. I hope I didn't ramble too much. I think I stand by everything that I said, and I think that it's really important. But this is a knitting podcast, so I am going to move on to fiber and yarn and knitting stuff. Because of what's been going on the past few weeks, and because I have been engaged and involved in what's going on, and have thought about little else, including to the detriment of work, I haven't done a ton of knitting. It's like I see other people knit, and I see a bunch of yarns that I love. I've still been purchasing yarns, but then when I actually get down to the knitting, I find that I lose motivation, that it's hard for me to continue to knit. Steve and my 11-year anniversary was on May 29th, and I believe that was the Friday during the week that George Floyd was killed. And so I was very heavily involved in the protests at the time. I guess I should also say, yeah, the protests that I have been mostly involved in. I was at the 3rd precinct on Thursday, the night that it burned down. I was at the 5th precinct during the sit-in that got a lot of media attention because of the use of force by police. I was at the 35W march on Sunday. I was on southbound though, not northbound, so I wasn't on the side. I was on that end, but I wasn't on the side that person drove through, and it was an amazing day. Otherwise, and I have been to the defund MPD marches. Anyway, so our anniversary was on Friday, and some of the yarn, or Steve ordered me several yarns for our anniversary. One of the yarns that he ordered me is this yarn by KnitCircus. It is the Greatest of Ease base. The colorway is April Skies. So he ordered me 2 skeins of it. It is a gradient of blues to grays to dark gray. Although the very, very, very center, I don't know if you can see it very well. The very, very center is actually kind of like a blue-gray. And he said that he bought this yarn for me because it reminded him of me in a particular moment in time, and it was very sweet. And so I really wanted to knit something with that to help processing and working through stuff. And yeah, so I did actually finish and knit the Framework Bralette by Jessie May. So I am going to show it and then talk about it presently. All right, here are my Framework Bralette boobs. So you can see, so I knit the size 31. So I have a 39-inch bust, and so it said like 8 or 9 inches. I knit this part longer than it said. I think it said maybe 2.5 inches, I think. And I think I knit almost, or no, it was 2.25 inches, and I knit at least 2.5. And still, I feel like it's not, well, maybe it's that I didn't make this long enough. But you can see that I'm wearing a bra underneath it. It is obscene for me to wear it not with a bra over it. But yeah, anyway, Jessie says that you can probably size down a little bit more, like you can go down one more size, but I really don't think that that is the case for me. Honestly, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be like here, like this. So that would mean I think I would need to make this, the top half of the cup longer. I started the top half of the cup here, is where the decreases start, and I need to make it longer somehow if I was going to do another one. I need more cup coverage, but this is sort of how I'm wearing it. It was really easy to make. So each cup, the back is identical to this, and so each cup is you knit all of it to here, and then you do it individually. And so in order to keep the gradient going, I broke the yarn in several places, which made weaving in ends pretty annoying. But it's really easy. You knit it inside out, so that you're working on the stockinette side, and this is reverse stockinette here. And it's really easy to memorize. I really like it. It's comfortable. Otherwise, like, it fits. Like, it's not like super loose, and it's not too tight. Yeah. So I'm gonna sit back down to talk more about this bralette. Hope you enjoyed those boobs. Yeah, so it was quick to knit. I think I finished it within like 4 days. I didn't knit every single day. It actually had a really rough start, which has nothing to do with Jessie at all. Steve asked me something like, can you start any project without making a major bungle at the beginning? And it's so true. I mess up. I had to recast on for this bralette 3 times, I think. Three for sure. What did I do wrong? Yeah, he said, I wrote this down because I really wanted to talk about it on the podcast. He said, name one project where you didn't make a single soul-crushing bungle, which is so true. There was one night I didn't get to work on it at all because I had to recast it on so many times. So I redid the cast on 3 times. The first time I used the wrong end of the yarn, so I wanted the blue, the bright sky blue, to be on the bottom. And then the second time, I missed a couple stitches in doing the repeat. It was like the setup row. I just did the setup row wrong. It describes a section on how many times you're supposed to do something, and then it says when you get to here, it's knit 1, purl 2, whatever it is. You're doing the setup row, and I missed in each repeat that last little bit. And so when I got to the end, I of course had 9 extra stitches or whatever that did not fit in the repeat, and so I had to, I got to the end, and so I only had 9 stitches left, and then whatever 145 stitches that I did not even appropriately set up. And so it just made more sense to just rip the whole thing out and recast on than tank back every single stitch to basically the very beginning. Another quote I have from Steve is, how are you simultaneously a very competent knitter and yet you still make such horrible mistakes? And this is another situation where it's it's really upsetting and annoying, and I hate making mistakes in knitting, but only because of the time loss. I really want to get knitting on this, and now I have to back up and start over, like that, versus thinking I'm so bad, I'm so stupid, I'm a terrible knitter. That's not the case for me. It's really the time that upsets me. But you gotta laugh. You just have to laugh at your mistakes and do better next time. Pay more attention, read the pattern appropriately. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. So after that, though, I really didn't have any sort of errors. The only other error that I might have made is because each cup is the same, I think I accidentally, at the top, you have 2 options. You can do a 3 needle bind off or Kitchener, and I did 1 strap Kitchener and 1 3 needle bind off just to see which one I liked more. In terms of my laziness, I like a 3 needle bind off better because it's faster. But I think Jessie is right. She says in the pattern that she finds that Kitchener stitch is more tidy And I think that's true. You know, it's like closing up the end of a sock and it makes it more seamless, I feel like. But like my stitches themselves look nicer in the Kitchener section, but it bulged out a little bit more, like it was a little loose. Whereas the 3-needle bind off was more in line, but like the stitches didn't match up exactly, if that makes sense. It wasn't as seamless. And that's probably the case, right? That is a seam, isn't it? But anyway, the only difference between the 4 cups is that the front strap is supposed to be a little bit longer than the back strap, because the assumption is that you have more skin and like protrusion in your front chest than on your back. And I have really like narrow, small shoulders, so I definitely didn't make it as long as other people, or as suggested. Like I think she said knit 4.5 inches for the front straps and then a little bit less for the back, but she just said like, you know, connect them. And I definitely did maybe 3 inches for the front and then like 2 for the back or something to that effect. I have a very small upper chest area. But so then what I ended up doing, I think on accident, was connecting my 2 front straps and my 2 back straps. So like one side, I think this side is shorter than this side, and so it just makes the armhole a little bit shorter. But otherwise I can't feel the difference. Like it doesn't feel like the strap is really tight. Like you can even see, I have no shoulders at all. Even on the shorter one, like there's a lot of space, even though it's stretchy, that it could fall off. I have a problem with small shoulders, with very sloped, narrow shoulders. So this is, I mean, it's very, very stretchy. So, but it doesn't feel tight on my underarms or anything like that. So I think it's a really great pattern. It's easy. It's easy to memorize. It only got kind of fiddly at the end because I had so many ends, because to keep the gradient I had to cut it, and there were so many, and they were getting tangled on the stitch markers that I had the remaining stitches on. Yeah, but I think it says, I think you're using size 3 and 4 needles, like 3 for the ribbing on the bottom and then 4 for the rest, and that worked just fine for me. And I'm a loose knitter, and so like I don't know how that would have impacted other people. I want to say that I knit the medium. 31 inches is the medium. And it said 8 to 9 inches of negative ease. But Jessie May's patterns are very inclusive. They go up to a wide range of sizes to fit a wide range of busts. And Jessie herself has a very large bust, and I think actually a really small, or comparatively a really small waist. And so she is also a uniquely shaped human. I'm pretty uniquely shaped, I think. And so her patterns try to accommodate for a variety of sizes. So I would highly recommend knitting it, and also several of her other patterns. I am joining the Sow's Ear, which is a yarn shop in Madison, but they're doing it virtually because of COVID, like a Jessie May knit along kind of thing. Like you can sign up for like various classes for that of Jessie May's designs, and I think it's just like a hangout specifically for Jessie May, knitting her patterns. And I want to try the Ripple butt shorts. I want some butt shorts, comfy butt shorts. Yeah, so I'm excited for that, and I think that's tomorrow at 6. So if you should go see if there's spots left, and you should go to the Sow's Ear. I think it's Knit and Sip, KnitandSip.com, something to that effect, or just Google Sow's Ear Madison or Verona, and yeah, and join if there's spots left, because when I signed up I was the only one signed up. I'm curious actually if anyone else has signed up. So that is my only finished object. I have a few like half finished objects that I'm going to show you. The first one I'm going to show you is actually not half finished at all, and it is the I always want to call it the Mermaid something, but it's the Water Bearer by Jacqueline Cieslak. So I haven't made a super ton of progress since last time, but I have made some progress. Every time I pick this one up, I'm always afraid I'm gonna like not, it's gonna be so long since I have knit it that I am going to not know where to start, and I'm gonna have to start over. But I think that I've been able to figure it out every time. I have all these ends here. Okay, so I believe that this is like the shoulders and back. So I have left and right and like the back panel. And so I believe the part that I'm working on now is finishing up one of the sides. I believe the first side I accidentally did a whole extra repeat or something. Like it's longer. I like misunderstood the directions or something when it came to you have to increase 1 stitch every 6 rows for a piece of it, and I think I did that incorrectly, or like I misunderstood what I was supposed to do for it, and it might have been because it was the purl side, but on the other side I feel like I totally understood the directions, and it was on the knit side, and because of that I think I ended up like I have less stitches or less rows because I was doing it correctly. And so I like increased the right number of times or something like that. And so I just need to make sure that both sides are the same. And then when I'm finished, I believe the next part I'm gonna do has to do with connecting the 2 panels together to make, like it's gonna be like the armhole. So it's gonna be like a little vest, and then I can work on the actual like body, if that makes sense. So I think what I'm gonna do when I'm finished is, when I'm finished with this, is connect like here, right? And so then this is a cardigan, this is an open cardigan, connect here, and then when I finish this side, connect here. Does that make sense? So then it'll be like this. Like that. So the black panel is stockinette, but you can see that this is a brioche pattern in waves. Some people find brioche really intimidating and scary, and I find it intimidating and scary when I'm going back to pick it up, because I'm so afraid I'm gonna like misunderstand, especially with this pattern. I think Anne Valley of Little Skein in the Big Wool, I think she had recommended printing it out, because you are really like, I'm on page 7, now I'm on page 12, and then I'm on page 8, and then I'm on page 11. Like you're jumping back and forth depending on which piece of the pattern you're on, because you're following repeats. And I'm doing it using Knit Companion on my iPad, which is fine, but then it's like, okay, wait, which page was I on? Knit Companion is awesome because you can use the little highlighter tool to individually highlight where you're at on each page. And then they also have a notes section. And so I write myself little notes. I used to do this sometimes in video games too. Like if I was putting down a video game for a while, I'd be like, Leah, remember, you were in this dungeon doing this thing. You were trying to find this guy, right? And so I've been trying to, with this pattern, to be like, Leah, you are on this row, on this part of this repeat, and there's a bunch of counters on the side, like you're using the orange and purple counters, something like that. So that I don't forget, and that I can pick it up and keep working on it, because it's slow going as brioche. If you know anything about brioche, it's like you're knitting twice as much for half as many rows. And so it takes a little bit longer, it's just more involved. But I mentioned this in the last podcast, brioche is insane in terms of how comfy. It's so comfy, and this yarn is so soft. Again, it is an Ecocycle something, like remnants of many amazing like silk and some other bamboo, I think, and some other fibers on Knitpicks. It's so soft, but I don't know if they're selling it right now, or I think maybe the colors are pretty unique because it's just like random combinations of fibers. But yeah, so that's where I'm at. I'm almost to the part where you can connect the armholes and get started on the main part of the body, and it will be my first open front cardigan, my first cardigan at all. I've never knit a cardigan before. I've only knit a few sweaters, and I am using size 6 Chowgood needles. Oh, honestly, actually, the main thing that I finished that I'm so proud of, I want to talk to you guys about it so badly, is that secret test knit I was working on. I learned while I was doing the test knit that it's going to be a part of a book that's coming out in December. So I can't talk about it or share pictures until she releases the book, or until she gives us permission. I don't know if she's doing promo and whatnot. Like, she asked us permission to use her picture, or to use pictures of our finished sweaters. But oh my god, you guys, I cannot wait to show you. It is so pretty. It fits me so nicely. It is an amazing, easy pattern. It's one of those patterns where if you just pick the right yarns and you can do a little bit of color work, it's going to turn out fantastic and people are going to think you're a genius. So I will make sure to bring it up later, but it feels like I've done so much less knitting than I have because I can't show you or talk about it. The next thing that I am working on, Mom, if you have not received this, which I don't think you will by the time this comes out, don't watch. Mom, skip ahead. I will put a, unless you want to see, I guess you can see if you want, but I'll try to put a timestamp to skip ahead to, so you don't get spoilers. Okay, so the next thing that I'm working on is for Mother's Day. I wanted to, I've had my eye on these for a long time. Cori Eichelberger of the I Rock Knits podcast and of just general Cori Eichelberger and I Rock Knits fame. She's local to Minnesota, and she wrote Minnesota 52. She co-wrote Minnesota 52, 16 knits inspired by the road. They're really cool. They come with little stories and really cool pictures and some recipes, and it is Friends Have Begun Traveling. Oh yeah, so this is not just a pattern book for Minnesota knitters. It represents a movement currently taking place for handcrafters. Friends have begun traveling together to retreats, festivals, conventions, or just weekends away to share a passion for knitting with one another. In the past 5 to 10 years, knitters worldwide have formed a community to meet up for camaraderie, classes, and chit-chat. 6 sweater designs, 2 pairs of socks, 2 hats, 2 cowls, 2 mittens, 1 shawl, and a surprise design and a recipe. So Minnesota 52 is, of course, talking about the Highway 52 that they would travel to, I think, for visits to the Mayo Clinic, I believe. I could be completely wrong now that I'm talking about it. Cori signed it. I went to one of her book signings. This is before I actually knew her very well. I don't know her very well, but knew her a little bit more personally. Rochester, not Red Wing. I always get Rochester and Red Wing mixed up. Yes, it would be Mayo, because Mayo is in Rochester, not Red Wing. I just get those two mixed up. It's the St. James Hotel is in Red Wing. Anyway, Cori Eichelberger. What was I gonna say? Oh, she knit these gloves for her daughter, and she, I believe, they are sweary. And I believe that she knit them differently so that they aren't as obvious in the swears. Anyway, so we live in Minnesota. It's cold here. It's really cold in the winter. One of my mom's most favorite sayings, or like most common sayings in the winter, is it's MF cold out there. Like, she just says like the letters MF. And these gloves are called How Cold Is It? Okay, and the gloves tell you that it is cold as fuck. So these gloves, the actual pattern has the U in it, but I thought maybe my mom would be the kind of person who would want the asterisk there. So I just put in an asterisk in the chart. Now, when I started knitting these, I started knitting them late at night. I was winding the yarn and I said, hey Steve, can you grab me the size 1s, okay? Or size 2s, they were size 2s. So I said, hey, can you give me the size 2s out of my ChowGoo, like beautiful little ChowGoo case. He brought me some needles. I thought, oh man, size 2 is smaller than I remember. And I knit, you guys, this entire glove. I shit you not, I got to the last 4 rows when I had to switch to double points, when I realized he didn't bring me the size 2 needle, It's a 9-inch circ. He brought me the 2mm. 2mm is a size 1. So I knit this entire glove in a size 1, and it's okay. It's not a huge deal. I have small hands as a person, okay? And when I put the glove on, my fingertips hit here. I think maybe my mom could get away with this, but it's not that comfortable when your fingers are pushing on the top. I'm pretty sure her fingers are longer than mine, and at the very least her palm is bigger than mine. Like, maybe not by a lot, but enough where I would be like, she would be very gracious about it, but I want it to be a size that actually fits nicely all the time, and you don't feel like that. It's that feeling where you feel like you're squished and you can't like come out. So I'm just gonna keep these for myself, and so I knit this. It's a self-striping yarn by Lolabean Yarn Co. Adela, and it was one of the April Easter colorways, and it's really pretty. I really like the self-striping look. The design is like awesome and so easy to follow, and the floats, most of them don't get bigger than 7 stitches. There's a couple like up here that get a little bit longer, but you only need to capture floats like, I want to say like 5 or 6 times total. The rest of the floats, as long as you keep them loose enough, work out really nicely. So I used this, and then I was like, and honestly I was like thinking, these colors are really pretty, but they're not really my mom's colors, I feel like. And so when I redid it with the actual size 2s, I used a self-striping of Canon hand dyes in pinks, and a self-striping actually of pinks and orange. And I really, really like this for her. I'm not sure how she feels about it. I don't know if she thinks I made the right choice or not. But I really, really like it. I would also in the future like to knit my sister a pair of these with the U. I feel like my sister would like the U. But you can see this is a size 2s. This is a size 1s. It's like just big enough, and like I feel like it's not doing a job. Yeah, that helps a little. It's like half to quarter to a half inch wider, and definitely longer, right? So I haven't finished the thumb. Still need to do that. I hate dealing with fingers and thumbs. Like, it's fine. I just am a baby. And now my pointer, or my middle finger, my longest finger, comes to right here, and then all of my other fingers exactly have just enough space right here where they're not bumping up against the slant. And so this will fit her so much nicer and better. So this is an amazing pattern. Even if you don't want any of the words, you know, just like do this and whatever you'd want to put on the front, and this little motif right here, are worth buying the pattern, to be honest. It's a very clear pattern, very easy to understand. I will put down here who it's by. But yeah, so that was my bungling. This is what Steve was talking about when he was saying, again, soul crushing errors that you make. You guys, I had literally 4 rows left when I realized I was using size 1s. Yeah, so this Canon hand dyes is Satsuki and May from Totoro. It was from the Totoro Adventure Club. Or I don't remember if it was Adventure Club, but one of the Canon hand dyes clubs. The next thing that I am knitting is a sneaky pair of socks for Steve. He thinks I'm knitting these for myself, but I am knitting these for him. I am, oh God, I love these. I haven't actually put them on sock block, so I'm half done. I just finished the ribbing, or maybe I don't think I finished it yet. I think I just cast on for the second sock, but this is a skein of so I'm knitting these socks with String Theory, Coloworks, and Andromeda, and I have finished one sock. And look at this blue, you guys. This, holding it back here is much more true than I think putting it up close. Yeah, it like gets like dulled out. It's very, yes, like this. It's very like bright and vibrant. So I am using the Twizzler socks pattern, I believe. I've knit several pairs of socks in this pattern. I really, really like it because it's just an easy slip stitch, and it adds like a little bit, again, because I'm a loose knitter, it adds a little bit of negative ease that I enjoy. I did do a slip stitch heel for that. I can't remember if that's what the pattern calls for or not. Typically I do an Eye of Partridge heel just because I really like it. But I think the slip stitch heel is appropriate for this one. I've been taking much more meticulous notes with these socks. So my friend Sean made each of these sock blockers. So like when I show socks of my own, the sock blockers were made for my feet, and this sock blocker was made for Steve's foot. And so hopefully it fits exactly right for his foot. But I've been trying really hard to like, I feel like the two pairs of socks that I've knit Steve were, the first one was definitely a bunch of experiments just trying to learn how to knit socks for someone other than myself. And then the second pair, I think I knit more exactly to his feet, and so therefore they're kind of loose, if that makes sense. Like they started out at his exact, like probably zero negative ease, and then like zero ease at all, and then that stretched them out. And so I'm trying to take meticulous notes and hope that this is enough negative ease for him without being too, and not so that they won't be too big. I also made more of an ankle than he has on his other pairs of socks, and so I hope that this recipe that I'm working on for him will work better. And so that I can reuse it more in the future. I have been knitting these on size 1s. I'm trying really, really hard to just use less stitches while using size 1 needles instead. Like before I had been using, like you guys, I had sized down to double zeros when I first started knitting socks because I wanted to use the same number of stitches that all the patterns called for. But now that I'm more comfortable with like division, like how do you do sock recipes and heels and whatnot with less stitches, then I'm back up to, I'm trying to use the 1s. So this is the first sock, completely finished, ready to go. And I have, yeah, I must have, this is, I think, finished the ribbing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, oh, maybe not. I can't remember, I think I did 15 rows, maybe 10, I don't know. This much done on the second sock. And I knit my socks top down, and this is the yarn. Beautiful self-striping, it's very soft, it's fluffy, and I have it in my Silver Shed USA Pokemon bag. The last thing I want to talk to you about is more of a project and not like knitting exactly, but it's yarn. So my friend Sean and I signed up for a basics yarn dyeing class with Diane of Lady Dye Yarns. We signed up for it a few months ago, and we had the class last weekend. And yes, last weekend. I didn't attend the class exactly because I was out protesting, but Sean attended, and then she taught me the next day. And so she taught me the 3 techniques that Diane goes through. If you sign up for one of Diane's classes, she does mail you all of the materials that you'll need for the class, and oh my gosh, I am about to show you a bunch of mini skeins, and I still have several mini skeins and a slub yarn full skein that I haven't dyed yet. I did order more dyes because you get kind of like a sampling of dyes, but not like maybe all the colors of the rainbow, and maybe like different colors. Like it's just an estimation of how much colors you get for each. So like I only had a little bit of blue, but I had a ton of red, for example. And so I ordered more dyes to do experimenting because I am so excited to keep dyeing. Dyeing yarn is way easier than I thought it was. So much easier. Like gel dyes you can find in like the Wilton cake section at like Joann's or Michael's, you know. I think you have to maybe order the powder dyes, or you can use Kool-Aid, or you can use natural materials. I've seen people use like avocado shells and stuff. But yeah, so I'm super hyped. So I want to show you what I came up with. Okay, so the first technique that you're shown is how to do a semi-solid. So the semi-solids were the easiest, I would say, and maybe the safest, if that makes sense, like the safest to dye. And so I'm going to show you my semi-solids now. The very, very first skein, the first skein of yarn I've ever dyed myself in my life is this boy. It is a gold, and Steve and I, and also my our friend Courtney, Courtney went through and she named all of them herself, and then we like bounced off those ideas. We kept a couple that she had named, and then went through and named the rest of them. So this one we named assistant to the regional manager. We started with calling it variations on Dwight, or quotes that Dwight said from The Office, but this is obviously just assistant to the regional manager in the same style that his shirt is. Another semi-solid I did is this red, and we called this one Shy Guy from the Mario series. Now, I don't know all of them by heart. I'm like really like looking like I know everything, but I don't think. But yeah, so I ended up with this one. This one I ended up dyeing, so I had accidentally mixed. So you know when you're looking at powders often maybe have hues that isn't necessarily accurate when you add water. So like I had a few that had kind of a reddish tint to it, but like one of them was brown and one of them was black. And then so I accidentally made like a jar of red when I really meant to do black, I think. And so I took some of that and I added it to the remaining bits of blue liquid that I had that I didn't plan on using. And in the jar it looked pretty purpley, but when it cooked out it ended up being more reddish. And so this is the outcome of mixing the blue, a little bit of blue with a lot more of the red. This was done not in the like traditional semi-solid where you have it like basically you're boiling yarn, right? That's not, but you're not boiling it, but you're heating up yarn with food dye. This one was more in a dry pan, and I just had the water over it. And this one we called Booyah Moon, which is a Stephen King reference to my favorite book of his called Lisey's Story. And this reminded me of the sort of tropical nighttime described in Booyah Moon. Oh, this one I forgot to name. This one actually was dyed twisted. So when it was dyed, there were sections of it that didn't get dyed because it was twisted up inside, on the inside. And so what I did was I let it sit there and get really bright on all of the exposed sections, and then I untwisted it, and then I put it back in the dye and added just a little bit more dye, and so that the light parts just got a little bit of light over dye. And so it's kind of like a little tie-dye effect. But if you think of a name for this really bright, like like that fake macaroni and cheese orange, I'm not gonna call it that, let me know. This one, I used leftover green from a different yarn that I was dyeing, and so it ended up being a very nice diluted light green, and we called this one Crystal Dragon from the Spiral games. If you know, in the first game, the dragons got turned into crystals, and this really is reminiscent of that. I mean, it also matches my hair, but Crystal Dragon. This one was another just kind of experiment where I sort of dumped remainders of a pink. No, this was a peach. This was just a pure peach. And I just had dusted it on top. And this one we called, oh, Courtney came up with this one, but I can't remember, I think she put it on this color. This one is, did you dye your hair? Because I dye my hair variations like this all the time. So that one's fun. Did you dye your hair? Which is actually really funny because, so when I dyed my hair, I can't tell if this is probably gonna be really loud in my headphones. You can see that there are some pink undertones. I just washed my hair today, so it's a little faded. But, I mean, all pastels are gonna be faded. But there was some pink that stayed when I bleached my hair because pink never comes out. And I don't care about that, but I just sort of over dye whatever. I don't care that much. Like, I just was bleaching my natural hair out. Okay, oh, and then this last semi-solid. So we named a lot of them from Outer Wilds because that's a really good game and we really liked it. We named this one Brittle Hollow, if you're familiar. If you're not, go look it up and you'll be like, wow, yeah, that does remind me of Brittle Hollow. So it's a tonal navy, just like the pure blue. And then there was a technique to try for speckling or using multiple colors. So I followed the directions and I didn't actually like how these came out. So she said pick 2 to 3 colors and then just sort of sprinkle them around. And so again, I had kind of an odd combination of colors in terms of like what I would normally use. And so I ended up using pink, red, and blue. And because it was speckling, the main skein was still that natural, and then it was speckled. And it kind of looked like a weird American flag with pink on it. And so what I did was, after I had soaked these in the citric acid, I had a jar of pink that I had been using for something else, and I just dumped both of these into the pink, and so they ended up over dyeing with pink. So now they're a deep pink, blue, and red. And so having those red burst through kind of made me think of like battle or kind of a violent situation. And so we named this for the Nunnery series, the 999 games, and we named this one Clover. So if you look up Cloverfield from the Nunnery games, or 999, she's in all 3 of the 999 games. Yeah, it's the Nunnery series. But anyway, so I thought that was really reminiscent of her. And also, if you haven't played those games, you really should. They are amazing. And then in the same note, this is just a plain speckle, so it's just the bare yarn, and then I speckled with peach and blue, and this one is Clover. I mean, not Clover, Light, from the Nunnery games. That's Clover, this is Light. And this is like, this reminiscent of him. So, yeah, it's cool. I really like this skein a lot. I mean, I like most of the skeins a lot. I wasn't very good at speckling. I think I need different materials. Like, I was just kind of like trying to sprinkle lightly with a spoon for the powder, and then I had to use a spoon to dip with the, if I was trying to use the gel, because I didn't have any squirt bottles. So I just need kind of squirty things. One of them, it said for speckling to take 2 skeins of yarn and do it, and so I had twin skeins, and I used just the straight pink and the and blue speckles, and you can see that the blue spread really fast and far and a lot. And Courtney had named a different yarn, Let's Pop, from Sayonara Wild Hearts, but we decided to reuse Let's Pop for these ones because the colors are very Sayonara Wild Heartsy, which is also another video game. I only did that really quick because I realized I'm just gonna probably do close-ups of each of the pictures or each of the yarns and insert them. Okay guys, we have 4 more. Like, look at that. Like, this was just look at all these yarns we got to play with. This one was another just trying to speckle, and this was one I did later, and I tried so hard to do just a little bit, and the blue just goes all over the place. This one was peach and the blue, and this one is called I Do What I Want. It is Quina from Final Fantasy IX. And like his little catchphrase, and my catchphrase is I do what I want. You have a problem, is what he says. I also forgot to mention on the Clover, the pink, red, blue skeins. So there is a technique where it's like you kind of like cooking dry, and you're just like letting it sit for a few minutes, and you're trying not to get it too hot. But Sean and I both burned yarn doing that. So on one of those skeins, there's a couple strands that burned through, but otherwise are fine. And Steve really likes that color, so I'm probably gonna make something for him with that, or maybe use one of the mini skeins in weaving. I don't know. And then the next 2 were I tried for a gradient. So I tried first this black with a gradient, and you can see it kind of ended up, so the technique had to do with like quick dipping, like little bits, and that didn't end up actually working out for me. I think I used too much black, and it ended up being, oh, I just dropped one then, because I have another black around here somewhere. Anyway, so it ended up being much darker, and so I just let the whole thing just be dark. And so yeah, it ended up a little still tonal because of the fact that one end ended up being dipped in longer than the others, but it's still mostly a pretty true black. Like, it's really nice. Like I feel like the camera's still making it look more gray than it is, but in person it's pretty, other than those one light sections, overall it's pretty dark. And so from the game Control, I named this one Black Rock Quarry, because Black Rock Quarry is exactly what it sounds like. It is black rock. And then this one, I actually did get more of a gradient on. I don't have it lined up exactly the most appropriate way to show the gradient, but yeah, it's a little better. I really liked this green a lot. We ended up calling this one, so Steve and I have an inside joke. We use a lot of quotes from shows as inside jokes, and it was probably a pretty common thing for people, but there is when Ross moves in with Chandler and Joey, and Chandler comes home, and Joey and Ross have built a fort with boxes, and Chandler goes in there and puts on a bonnet, and he's like, "Isn't this a lady's hat?" or something like that, and Joey's like, "Stop talking crazy and make us some tea," and he does. And so we drink a lot of tea in this house, and so whenever Steve's like, "Hey, I'm going upstairs, what do you need?" and I'll be like, "Well, I would like you to stop talking crazy," and the implication or the rest of the sentence is, "I would like you to make me some tea," right? And so we we're using that quote for that yarn because a lot of the tea is green. Ha! I knew it. I was like, where did that one go? The other gradient that I did end up actually being more successful on, and I'm not going to take it apart because I really like the way it looks, exactly like this, but it is a gradient of grays, and we called this one, we called this one Eye of the Universe, which is from Outer Wilds. Outer Wilds and Control are like the best games of all time. So yeah, this is a nice gray to gray gradient. And lastly, I was like, hey, I have remainders of dye. Let's see what I can do with some striping. So this one is just a hot pink and a black/gray and a green. So I just took the three that I had the colors of and I just put it in there to see if I could get it to stripe. And I did pretty good. I think the color I have the least of is the green. I didn't like, I know that for real self striping, and especially it's usually like at least 4 colors, that you like do some math and you divide it up appropriately and whatnot. And I just eyeballed it because I was just practicing. I wanted to see if I could do it. And so this is approximate, but it's pretty close into thirds. And we just called this one Night Bloom because it kind of reminds us of like nighttime radioactive style video gamey sort of flowers. So yeah, those are all of the yarns that I dyed. And I still have several mini skeins and a full, I'm looking at them hanging over here, and a full slub yarn that I need to dye. So I highly recommend Diane's class. Again, she's Lady Dye Yarns, and she does a lot of really cool clubs. This is some of her yarn. She is the, oh, there's a button here for the Rebel with a Cause Club. And I got some yarn for that. It's in here somewhere. Yeah. So that was my yarn dyeing adventure. I'm so hyped to dye and make yarns. Steve and I are coming up already with themes that we want to do, even if it's just mini skeins or like for just a single project or whatever. Super hype about dyeing yarns. And same with Sean. Sean and I are like, she wants to like do the color perfecting because she is an artist. She does art stuff like watercolors and paints and stuff, and I want to say I want yarns for specific things, because I mean there are some yarns that I will or won't buy based on the name. Like, I mean obviously I have to like the colors, but like let's say it's Doctor Who themed. I don't really watch Doctor Who. I don't want something for a random character or a thing or theme in Doctor Who. I want something specific to me and my needs and tastes. Like this one is a Prince colorway. This one's called Purple Rain. You know, it's things like that, like they're very meaningful to me based upon the name. Like not all of them, but I have to be connected in some way to some part of it. I don't want something random related to something else. Even if I like it, I don't know. I want it to be a part of something that I like and that I connect to. So very excited about that. I have so many yarns that I really want to show you from the last month, but I do not have time. So I'm not going to show you them right now. I'll just save them for next time probably. But I did want to show you that these 2 skeins came from Qing Fibre and our Amatrine. Oh, and there's another skein too, a 3rd skein. I'll find it. But these are, I'm showing you these ones because they are more anniversary yarns from Steve. He was really into the variety and the speckles. Of these yarns, and these are DK weight, and they are so pretty. I am so excited. The other yarns are Oslo, and he said that they seemed more galaxy-like. It's like the blue is kind of a little bit more washed out than he thought, like kind of denim-y, like very denim-y, but like the purples, pinks, mauve on it. And there are like shocks of bright blue also in here, but he bought them because they were very galaxy-like. And but again, these are DK. He might have also been looking at the fingering weight. You know, like he tries really hard and he does a really good job with picking out yarns for me, and so I'm excited to have more DK weight yarn. As you can see, I have an overabundance of fingering weight. This isn't even all of it. I have the 3 self-striping bins too, and now I need more because this and this are completely jam full, and that's almost full. So yeah, more room for more yarns. So before I get too long, that is it for today. I do have a lot of really cool things I want to show you, like kits and whatnot that I have ordered and or purchased, but I don't have time today, so we'll just save it for next time. If you have anything to say, feel free to comment below, find me on the socials, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much for coming back. If you're a returning viewer, if you are a new viewer, welcome. This is pretty much how my podcast goes. And if you have any suggestions for things you want to see or hear, let me know. And don't forget, if you have a name for that yarn, let me know and maybe I will use it. Have a great rest of your week, and I hope to see you again in the next couple weeks. Bye.